of stumping up the cash, you would think.
Yeah, I'd imagine so, even with their complicated financial situation, David. And there's an option to buy within the loan deal. So I presume the fee has been set already, reportedly sort of 35 million euros, which equates towards the lower end of David McDonald's story, which I think says around 25 million pounds is what they want to pay. And Manchester United, he says, value him more towards 40 million euros or pounds. That's what the option to buy was for Aston Villa when he was on loan last season. And if the option's there, then they're going to have to stick to that. But we're not even at the January transfer window, let alone next summer. And as we quite rightly talk about there, Charlotte's articulated how much could happen before then for Marcus Rashford and also for Barcelona, for Manchester United, for Manchester United managerial situation. I think it was a sort of farewell to United when he went on loan. I think his career is most likely to be pursued elsewhere, despite there still being some time left on his contract. And Barcelona have always been great admirers of Marcus Rashford, and Hansi Flick was really keen to bring him in after speaking with him. And he's now scored a couple of goals and created one too in his first, 5 appearances. So it's not a bad start, despite the slight timekeeping issue. And he's not the first person to fall foul of those rules, and probably won't be the last with Barcelona. It sort of is a strict policy there. And you wish him well. When Marcus Rashford is on form and focused and feels loved, he's one of the best attacking talents around. We've all seen it now. But there's not been that consistency for many reasons at Manchester United and at England level. And I think everyone would like to see him sort of hit the ground running for a sustained period of time and really see what he could do, because it could be a massive benefit for Barcelona in the short term, and also, of course, England in a World Cup year that he'll hope to be a firm part of.
The timekeeping issue aside, I mean, listen, just set your watch 5 minutes early, Marcus, and then you'll solve the problem. But do you think, Charlotte, that, when you consider all these various factors, the fact that he feels like he is refreshed, rejuvenated, that, it's a different type of football, he is already contributing, that all the signs are that this could be a pivotal, potentially turning point season for Marcus Rashford?
Like David said, I think everyone hopes for his sake that it is, because he'd stagnated at Manchester United, the loan move at Aston Villa. There were moments where we saw what he's capable and possible of, but it wasn't that consistency week in, week out for the last 6 months of the season. So if he can go there, if he can find his love for football again, if he can generate that spark, if all those things, I think everyone would like to see that, because in his peak, he's a fantastic footballer to watch. And who could benefit more than England next summer in the World Cup? If he can find that form that we all know he's capable of, then Thomas Tuchel will be absolutely delighted. Manchester United would be delighted because they can make loads of money from it. Barcelona would be delighted because they'd have a world-class player on their books, and Marcus Rashford would be back to playing his best football. So I think it suits everyone if he can get that love back for the game, which it just seemed like he had lost maybe in the last 18 months, 2 years. And at the beginning of his spell at Barcelona, it just seemed that this move, it could be, I know it's very early days, but it could be something that works out for him.
We'll keep an eye on it. Let's head to the Daily Mail now and talk Ballon d'Or. Of course, the ceremony has been taking place, and we know that there were a number of winners, particularly to do with the Lionesses. So the ones that really jump out off the page are obviously Serena Wiegmann and Hannah Hampton winning their individual awards. So there's Serena Wiegmann on the back page of the Mail. Glory, England manager, wins Women's Coach of the Year at the Ballon d'Or Awards. David, no real doubt about this one, but how much will this mean to her, given the pressure and the scrutiny that was on England ahead of their defence of their European Championship?
Well, I don't know how much stock she puts on this sort of award compared to her 2 European titles, but judging by her speech, it was profoundly impactful, and she spoke really nicely and also talked very passionately about how much we all want to see sort of certain changes around women's football. She talked of misogyny and racism, and I thought that hit powerfully. In terms of her achievements, that was a strong field. She was up against some top coaches, and she deservedly came through to take that award. I mean, England's men's team could take a leaf out of her book in terms of her sustained success now in back-to-back Euros tournaments at home and abroad. And so, yeah, she was a very worthy winner. Hannah Hampton, too, as goalkeeper, and she spoke perhaps even better. And a nod, quite rightly, to Matt Beard and the impact that's had on the whole of football. And Mary Earps was there to present the award, and it sort of reminded me that, you know, there was a bit of controversy coming into the Euros that Earps was the sort of home favourite. Such a good player and personality who left the camp, didn't she? And it seemed that there was a bit of rancour around that. But Hannah Hampton stepped up spectacularly, saving a couple of penalties against the mighty Spain in the final, and took that accolade tonight. And so, yeah, it was a really good night for the Lionesses.
Yeah, let's go to the back page of the Eye, because we've got a picture there of Hannah Hampton as she's there with her award. And I mean, it is quite an astonishing rise, isn't it? Because, as you know, David said, Charlotte, you know, it was Mary Earps who effectively stepped aside and paved the way for Hannah Hampton. And I remember not just the final against Spain, but I think against Sweden as well. There was an incredible fingertip save from Sofia Jakobsen's penalty. Yeah, arguably, you know, probably the best penalty save of the entire tournament. What do you make of that? Because, you know, it's been such a transformation for her. She wasn't even the number one. Now she's there as Women's Ballon d'Or winner in the Yashin Trophy.
And I think the pressure going into that tournament for her was absolutely massive as well, because all the focus was on Mary Earps, and it was sort of diminishing how good a goalkeeper Hannah Hampton was, because everyone was saying Mary Earps has been so selfish, dropping out. Hannah Hampton's not experienced enough. How are we expected to go all the way in this competition when she's been the one that's been left to take the number one shirt? And she basically, well, not single-handedly won England that Euros, but obviously played a huge part in that. And let's not forget the role for her club that she had last season as well, for Chelsea. So yeah, it's been an absolute remarkable year for her, and all the focus that was on her as well. I think it would have been really easy for her that to get her down, or for her to feel the burden of that pressure with all the focus that had been on the goalkeeping situation. But she seemed to take it in her stride, and she's fully deserving of that award that she got this evening.
Back page of The Guardian shows a picture of Aitana Bonmatí. And of course, she didn't score in the shootout for Spain against England, and also part of the Barca Femení team who lost to Arsenal in the Champions League final. But clearly, she's a class apart, isn't she, David? When you look at the player, she often seems like she's 2, 3, 4 moves ahead of everyone else on the football pitch.
Yeah, she didn't win the team trophies on this occasion. She has, of course, in the past, but she did pick up the individual accolade for the third time in a row, and that's now 5 Barcelona wins consecutively, which just shows the quality that she brings and that club bring, and it's quite remarkable, really. And she's turned into an iconic figure in the game, and up there with Lamine Yamal Ousmane Dembele as well, pipping Lamine Yamal, another Barcelona player. So yeah, it was an amazing night for her, and she too was an amazingly worthy winner.
And when you think about Ousmane Dembele, Charlotte, and where he was at Barcelona when it felt like he was troubled by injury, he seemed like a trouble figure at times. He felt like he was playing within himself. He was, you know, a man with a heavy price tag on his back. You know, it's some trajectory in his sort of, you know, the way he has I suppose, defined himself at PSG, and of course now a Champions League winner.
Yeah, what a season he had. What was it? 35 goals and 14 assists across all competitions. He took the League One Golden Boot home. I think he was Champions League Player of the Year, and now he can add Ballon d'Or to that. He's an unbelievable talent. I don't think that anyone is really surprised that he took this trophy home. Obviously, Lamine Yamal might be a bit disappointed it hasn't been his year this year, but given his age and the talent that he is, I'm sure he's got many Ballon d'Or nominations coming his way in the future. But yeah, Dembele was absolutely crucial to everything that PSG managed to achieve last season. Obviously, that historic Champions League, he was absolutely key to that. So absolutely no surprise that he's been the one to take home the award this evening. And you wouldn't be surprised if it's a competition between these two going forward for the next few years, like we obviously saw between Messi and Ronaldo for decades, didn't we? Maybe this could be the future in terms of the two young guns that we're going to see fighting it out going forward in the future.
Yeah, and by the way, in terms of Premier League involvement, Cole Palmer 8th, Mohamed Salah 4th. So, yeah, congratulations to them for being part of the top 10 anyway. All right, thank you for the moment. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll look at more of the sports stories in the morning's newspapers, including this in The Sun. Ruben's caper. Red Devils want to land another stopper. We're back in a couple of minutes. You're watching Back Pages tonight. Welcome back to you at home. Welcome back to Athletics football correspondent David Ornstein and also the Times football writer Charlotte Dunker. Let's talk to you a little bit about the story on the back of the Daily Telegraph, or the front of their sports section, which is Horner agrees £80 million payoff. So here we have a situation, Charlotte, where we have a man who was obviously caught up in, investigations made by his own company, his own team, and he eventually, he continued doing his job, now has been sacked, and now after receiving, it will be, as it says here, £80 million, could return to the sport as soon as next year. What do you make of it?
It seems like it's worked out pretty well for him, doesn't it? I mean, obviously, if he'd held on for the remainder of his contract, I think he would have been owed more than 100 million. So obviously that's when the negotiations have been around in terms of getting a reduced payoff. But I think the part of the agreement is the gardening leave, which is going to allow him to return to the sport a lot sooner. So I think everyone within F1 would expect him to maybe come back into the sport next year. But he's had 20 years there. He's won Constructors' Championships. He's been really successful. But like you say, this isn't some big secret. This isn't some big surprise that he's leaving. He was effectively sacked as team principal in July, and then they've been going through these negotiations as to how much money he would get in his payoff. So 80 million is a fair whack. I think the Telegraph story said he's planning to take his wife on holiday, maybe to the Scottish Highlands now and enjoy a bit of downtime. Well, they've got enough money to do that for the next few months. And then presumably he'll plot his next move as he plans to return to F1 as soon as possible.
David, this is a man who, really in terms of the Red Bull power struggle, he as soon as Dietrich Mateschitz passed, he was really trying to pull everything towards him. Is this payoff perhaps a sign of how dominant he was at that team, not just the success that he'd built over the years?
Yeah, it's good money if you can get it, David. Some estimates and reports have sort of said it's more towards 60 million euros, 75 million pounds, and as you quote, the 80 there in some of the papers. And I think that would amount to one of the biggest payoffs in sporting history or something. There were still some years left on his contract, I think 5 years, and potential bonuses and all sorts. And it's been vastly successful in that 2 decades that Charlotte mentions, where he pretty much launched Red Bull Racing, and they were somewhat of a laughing stock at the beginning, and then turned into a hugely successful operation with himself and Adrian Newey, the famous designer, at the heart of it. But so many departures now, and this whole saga from the text message allegations to some of the sort of tensions within the hierarchy, including him, has sort of lifted a veil on it not being such a happy place, perhaps, and the results declined certainly last season, although Verstappen's come back a little bit of late. And I think it's a massive moment for the sport, even though it's not a surprise that he's gone, but this sort of payout, and it was actually sort of reduced from what he would have earned if he had stayed. And that will allow him to come back in. And now the fascinating element is that he could appear elsewhere. And let's see which teams try and take him, if any, where he would like to go back in. The reports suggest he wants to be at sort of executive level, part ownership, making decisions. So we certainly haven't heard the last of Christian Horner in F1 just yet. I think he feels he's got unfinished business, and that will provide another compelling narrative, no doubt.
OK, let's try and push through another few stories. Back page of The Sun. Ruben keeper caper. Red Devils want to land another stopper. Right now, come on. What's going on here with keepers at Manchester United, Charlotte? I mean, they've just signed Senne Lammens. They were trying to get Emi Martinez. That didn't happen. And it seems that, there are other names that have been around, Donnarumma, for example, that they never really got in the conversation with. What's going on?
Well, I think if you look, there isn't an established number one. Is the Lamens is 23 years old. He's unproven. They said when they decided to sign him over Martinez that they were looking at someone for the future. So they don't know at the minute how that signing is going to work out. Is a goalkeeper still someone that they could look at next summer? Of course, Bayindir is not a convincing number one. And Onana's obviously gone out on loan for the rest of the season. So it is one of those positions where they will still continue to look at it. But as we've said so many times on here, you could reel off the whole of Manchester United's 11 and look at all the positions all over the pitch and think, do they need upgrades there? Do they want to invest? So it'll come down to it next summer in terms of priorities. How much money do they have? Are they going to prioritise a goalkeeper? Has Lamens proved himself? He's not been given a chance yet. So there's still so much time to go. As like we said with the Rashford situation, we're in September. We're not even near the January window opening yet, let alone the summer window next year.
Yeah, absolutely. OK, let's switch to the other side of Manchester. Back page of the Express. And Bernardo Silva has been complaining about Manchester City's fixture schedule. Of course, they suffered that last-minute equaliser from Gabriel Martinelli in stoppage time to draw against Arsenal. Has he got a point, David, or is it just sour grapes?
Well, it's just an ongoing narrative now. The fixture congestion. Pep Guardiola talked about it as well, the scheduling. And we go back to the points we've made previously about the owners and the game and those who make these decisions. Often they're the people at clubs who could maybe do something to stop it. And then their own players and staff come out and criticise it. Within the same interview, Bernardo Silva sort of did point out swings and roundabouts. It may be Arsenal or Chelsea or Tottenham or Liverpool another time. His point was the principle. It doesn't make it right that different teams are having different preparation periods, and on the continent you often see teams getting a rest before a big game like that. It doesn't happen in England, but that's part and parcel, it seems, of being one of the most watched and biggest leagues on the planet. It is going to catch up, I'm sure, and it already is, with injuries, especially soft tissue, and it's not good. But every time we talk about solutions, the sort of money seems to talk.
Friend of the show, John Cross, has been chatting in the Mirror about the situation involving the manager at West Ham, currently, Graham Potter, working as usual, but looking at potential replacements. Slaven Bilic, Charlotte, discuss.
Yeah, it'd be an interesting one if he went back there, wouldn't it? He's out of work. I think they see him as a cheaper option than Nuno, who was obviously just sacked by Forest. I think they have had some preliminary talks with him, but maybe the figures aren't beginning to line up. So Bilic would be an option for them. We know that he did have some relative success in the 2 years that he was at West Ham before. Maybe he could come in and steady the ship, but Graham Potter's results, if you go back to January, just haven't been good enough. So I think nobody would be surprised if we did see a change in manager there. But yeah, Bilic is definitely one who is being considered for a return at the moment.
We have 30 seconds, David, for you to tell us a little bit about a story in The Guardian. Liverpool don't waste time like our rivals, says Arne Slot. Just a little bit of a dig here. Was it necessary? Is he right?
Everybody wastes time. And listen, Liverpool have an uncanny way of finding their way to score goals this season, late ones in particular, and they're winning matches. I think there's everybody could point to everybody else and throw a bit of that around. And there was some legitimate points that David Moyes and Jack Grealish in particular raised. But the scoreline is the scoreline, and Liverpool sit top once again and looking pretty.
Yes, 5 wins out of 5 and not playing particularly well, but doing the job. They call it form of champions, I believe. We'll see. All right. Thank you very much indeed, Charlotte. Thank you very much indeed, David. We'll see you again soon, I'm sure. If you missed any of the show, another chance to see Back Pages tonight at hour. The show also available as a podcast. Just download Back Pages on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your pods. Join us again Tuesday night. Our guests will be Ihsan Khan and Carl Anka. All right. It is Ryder Cup week. There